This is one of the best chicken breast recipes I've made in a while. I'm going to show you the easy way I love to make smothered chicken. It's so good. I'm starting off with 3 chicken breasts. You definitely can use chicken thigh meat, but I have chicken breast today, and I'm going to slice each breast in half to make cutlets. And this is something I like to do. I like to use the back of my knife and just sort of flatten it out evenly. Okay, so all of my cutlets in a bowl, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to season these today. You can use any seasoning rub. I'm going in with 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of paprika and 1 teaspoon of lemon pepper blend. Here I'm going to add cracked black pepper, maybe a half teaspoon to a full teaspoon, and just give that a mix. Like I said, use your favorite herb blends for this. So I'm going to add some cooking oil and just sort of coat each chicken cutlet. And after the chicken is coated, I'm going to start adding that seasoning blend that we've created. And I'm just going to shake that on. Don't worry about getting like raw chicken hands in the seasoning. This entire recipe is going to call for that blend that I made, so don't worry. It'll all cook through. So I'm going to add probably somewhere like a half cup to 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour. If I had to guess, I think I just added a half cup. Honestly, I am eyeballing today. So I'm going to use the rest of that seasoning blend into the flour to make a dredge. And I'm just going to mix that up with my hands. And I'm going to be honest, I actually was not going to film this today, and I realized, you know what, some of you might want to see a smothered chicken recipe. Okay, so I'm going to take over my dredge, and now I'm going to just coat each chicken cutlet. By the way, I was also thinking of making chicken spaghetti with these chicken breasts that I had thawed, but then I opted to do smothered chicken. But let me know in the description below if you want to see an easy chicken spaghetti recipe, because I make that as well. My family loves it. Okay, so once these are coated, they'll be ready to brown in the pan. So I'm using a large pan. I'm going to coat the bottom with cooking oil. Again, if I had to guess what I'm using, maybe 1/3 to a half cup of cooking oil. And you want to preheat it and start to pan sear each side of the chicken cutlets. I'm not really trying to cook them through, I just want to get some good browning on the exterior. So a minute or so on each side to just brown the chicken breast. So after I brown each piece on each side, I'm going to put it on a plate and set aside. And this pan, we're still using it as is. I'm going to slice 1 large white onion, and I'm just going to cut it into like these half-moon slices and slice that in half, and it's time to saute. And I'm working with like a medium heat. So I am going to add around 2 tablespoons of butter into the pan, because now I'm going to work on the roux for this. And it all comes together quick. I'm essentially utilizing the leftover flour dredge to create a roux with this melted butter. I did not measure how much flour was left, but if I had to guess, it's maybe somewhere between 6 to 8 tablespoons of all-purpose flour with some of that seasoning mix into it. And like I said, I am so sorry that I'm eyeballing. You all know that I love to give you kind of like exact measurements or a good place to start, but truly I wasn't going to film this because I just thought, who wants smothered chicken with chicken breast? Typically I like to use chicken thighs or bone-in chicken legs or chicken thighs, but I said, you know what the heck? People like chicken breast, this is another way to make it. Okay, so I've added my flour dredge with the onions and the butter, and I'm gonna cook this for a couple of minutes. And in the process, you can kind of scrape up the fond. And here I'm going to add 2 cans of chicken broth. These are 14.5 ounce cans, plus 1 can of water. So I'm gonna work in the first can and just sort of start combining and mixing in the lumpy roux. You could also use a whisk for this if that is easier. So after mixing, you'll want to taste it for salt and seasoning and adjust to your preference. I'm going to add some of this Maggi seasoning sauce. Maybe start with a teaspoon and just mix that in. You'll want to bring this up to a gentle simmer after you mix that. But what I'm going to do is add the chicken back into this pan, and you'll notice the gravy part is still not thickened, or it has not thickened. That's okay, because here I'm putting the chicken back in, and you just want everything sort of underneath and just covered in this sauce. And I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes and let it gently simmer on low for 20 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to work on my mashed potatoes. I have some russet potatoes left in this bag. I'm just going to peel and prep them and just make simple mashed potatoes. Honestly, this is a pretty good like weeknight meal or weekend meal if you don't have time. And the weather has been cold lately, so a good hearty meal is just going to keep us warm. Okay, 1 tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder goes into the pot of water with the potatoes. I'm going to just crank up the heat. I'm going to cover this with a lid and let it come up to a boil, let it cook till the potatoes are fork tender. I'm also going to make a homemade cornbread. Again, I just did not think of like really coming up with a recipe, but I'm using the bag recipe as a guide. I have 1 cup of this self-rising yellow cornmeal and 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I changed the ratios. Here I'm probably going to add somewhere like a half teaspoon to a full teaspoon of salt. I'm also going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar or 4 tablespoons of sugar. Honestly, even with a 4 tablespoons of sugar, I would still consider this cornbread on the savory side and not quite on the sweet side. So if you do like a sweet cornbread, maybe add a couple extra tablespoons. Here I'm adding 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And I'm just going to give everything a mix. And then I'm going to add my wet ingredients. So here I have a can of cream style corn going in. I'm going to add 2 large eggs. Here I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of cooking oil, and I'm going to start adding in my milk. 1.5 cups of milk goes into this. So there, I guess that is a recipe, but honestly when I was making this, I was just kind of coming up with the ratios on the fly because I wanted to incorporate that cream style corn. And the texture is still going to be a cornbread texture. It's going to be very moist and tender, but you know, if you want to add sour cream and cheddar cheese, you could have like a corn casserole thing going on. Okay, so you're going to combine everything and mix it well. You'll want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I am going to give this a really good mix, and I'm going to put it in a buttered cast iron skillet. I would say an 8 by 12 2-inch baking pan could work for this. I feel like if you use an 8-inch square baking pan, I don't know, it might kind of seem too small, but you know, you can give it a try. But I have this cast iron skillet that I always use, and this recipe works perfectly for that. So this is going to go into my preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to cook this for like 25 minutes to 30 minutes or until it's done. And this is what it looks like. It's perfect. Golden brown top, fluffy center. It's great. And here you go. Look at this. This is a very tender and moist cornbread. Perfect with this meal. And my smothered chicken is ready. This has been bubbling and simmering for 20 minutes. It's tender. I'm going to shut off the heat. My potatoes, I believe they should be done. And I'll show you how I make those. But honestly, if you are creating this smothered chicken recipe, make the potatoes how you like. Sometimes if I don't have potatoes, I serve this over steamed rice. It all works in my book. Okay, and I also made this like frozen bag of vegetable medley as a side. But here we go. I left some of that like chicken brothy potato liquid in the pot. And I'm going to just put this on low heat for a second because the butter I'm using is still kind of cold and I want that to melt. Some people just pop it into the microwave, but I'm not. Okay, salt. And I'm also going to add my favorite sour cream. And I suggest you do the same. I just eyeballed that in there. And you want to add some cracked black pepper, and that's it. I'm just going to let this kind of melt, and then I'm going to start mashing and creaming the potatoes together. You could also add some cracked black pepper. So many ways to make mashed potatoes. It all works, and it's going to be great with this smothered chicken. So let me know in the comment down below some of your favorite chicken breast recipe ideas. I might do that next week because I always like to have chicken breast on the menu when it is on sale and available. So you see how tender this is? It's fork tender. The flavors are so good. And this is what's for dinner. So I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it. And thanks for watching.